All right, everybody, welcome to our Monday, September the 25th Business Board meeting. I call the meeting to order. Mr. Bertram, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Moore?
Here.
Mrs. Shiver?
Here.
Mrs. Stewart?
Here.
Mrs. Mulligan?
Here.
Dr. Urso?
Here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Verlina. Any questions, comments? There are none. Mr. Bertram?
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Shiver?
Yes.
Mrs. Stewart?
Yes.
Mrs. Mulligan?
Yes.
Dr. Urso?
Yes. All right, so we get a presentation tonight. It looks like we get a ILO MHS Redesign Phase 1 presentation. I'll turn it over to our superintendent, Ms. Hauser.
Yes, we do. We have some information tonight. You know that, back on June 5th at a board meeting, we talked about how we were really starting to get into our Middletown High School redesign. So what you're going to hear tonight is an overview of Phase 1. If you recall, Phase 1 started back in June, ended in August. We've been working quite a bit weekly. We have teams. We have central office leadership teams, high school leadership teams, BLT teams, teachers, students that have been working since June, really during with Phase 1 to start building the foundation of our high school redesign. So that's what you're going to hear tonight. You're going to hear from Ms. Cotter. You want to pop on up to the podium? Come on up. So we have Ms. Cotter with us tonight. We also have Sabrina. Sabrina, can you hear us? There we go. Sabrina from ILO. Anna also came, and we have Carrie Hensley here. We all have a little bit to share with you this evening. Before we get started, if you want, there's a stack of information just sitting in front of you. What you'll see is the first handout you'll recognize that's straight from our strategic vision. The reason that we've placed that there in front of you tonight is just to remind you that this is all work coming straight from our strategic vision. We started this back in 2021, and it's hard to believe we're this far along already, but it's time to start working with the high school. If you flip through, I've highlighted some, and just by simple check marks, some of the work that you're going to see directly reflected in the Phase 1. And also, really, this was theory, and this was working with so many people in the community. Now we're building it out. Okay, so it's just a reminder. This is not new. It's just a continuation of the Passport to Tomorrow and what we've promised to the community. The second thing you're going to see in your stack is the high school redesign. This is the PowerPoint or the presentation that you're going to see up on the screen. Okay, it's just something to follow along. Also, there's a handout on the actual meetings and deliverables that we've been working through in Phase 1 since back in June. And then also the last thing you see in your stack is the outline of Phase 1, 2, and 3. You're going to hear about Phase 1 tonight. You're going to hear about proposals for Phase 2. And then there's the white paper that consists of the $189,000 for the Phase 2 work. So right now what we're going to do is we're going to, Randy, you want to change the slide there? So if we can just take a second. So, strategic vision's been in place since 2021. We started the planning before 2021. But if you recall, with Passport to Tomorrow, we implemented our K-5 program last year with our Passport to Tomorrow classes, right? So that was K-5 last year. This year, we're implementing 6 through 8. And in grades 6 through 8, it's a deeper focus with the career awareness piece. It's really career exploration. It's a little bit more focused and streamlined. We're pulling in junior achievement in 6 through 8, and then in 8th grade, we're focusing in on the 4 E's. Okay, all along while we've been implementing K through 5 and 6 through 8, we've been working with Middletown High School redesign. This process it's quite. There are many, many pieces to this process. So just know that the planning's been going on, but now that this school year in June, we've really become more intentional with the planning. Anyone go one more? Okay. So you can see the timeline for the Middletown High School redesign. So this year, school year 23-24, we've started the work with initial pilots. Also, if you recall, over the summer, which you'll hear the ladies talk about the summer work, we really built the foundation of quite a bit of the work that you're going to see tonight. We've launched the initial pilots, which you're going to hear about tonight also. And we're right now in the cycle of collecting feedback, collecting data, and really keeping people abreast of what we're doing with the Middletown High School redesign. That's going on this year with the pilots. Next year in 2024, 2025, you're going to see those pilots scale. And we talk about pilot scaling. That's still testing what we're thinking is going to work with our students in Middletown High School and building out those pilots. 25-26 is when we anticipate the redesigned high school hitting. Okay, where we will most likely see a bell schedule change, where you're going to actually see, you can see up there under 25-26, redesigned school model launches its first cohort. Okay, what that's going to look like, we're still working towards that, but that's 25-26. So you can see that's a couple years out still. But just know that we are in phase 1, ready to go into phase 2 when it comes to identifying our high school redesign. So now I'm going to turn it over to Sabrina from ILO, and she's going to take us through some of our summer work. And Sabrina, they can see you as soon as you start talking.
Fantastic.
Okay, so
Thank you so much,
there you go.
Superintendent. Hello, everyone. My name is Sabrina Solares-Hand. I am a Senior Managing Director with ILO Group, and I have had the absolute pleasure of partnering with the leadership team in Middletown throughout this past summer, as the superintendent mentioned. If I can ask that we flip to slide 5 for the group. If we're on slide 5, you'll be able to have the scope of work for phase 1 in front of you detailed. The main focus of phase 1 was to establish the guiding coalition, in this case the building leadership team for Middletown High School. And that is important in order to set a foundation for the team overall that would be working on this moving forward, so that they have the focused sort of supports and structure that they need in order to move through the phases ahead. Throughout the slides that are going to happen in the next few moments, we're going to walk you through this a little bit more specifically, but overall I wanted to highlight the main goals of this were to, 1, build the design thinking capacity of the building leadership team and the leadership team at large, so that they could think creatively about what would be happening with high school redesign, kicking off the design process itself, and then also providing some structure for the work ahead. We can move to slide 6, please. So to ensure transparency, as the superintendent mentioned, with school and the broader community, wanting to make sure that we're communicating really thoughtfully and in line with the strategic plan and the framework for the Passport to Tomorrow that has been approved by the district. And so to that end, we did spend some time collaborating with the district's communications administrator, and we also participated in weekly check-ins with the district leadership team, as well as some additional meetings. We've had the opportunity to spend some time with the high school leadership team, for example, in order to make sure that we're refining and making tools that are responsive to what the team would need to move through this process. And as the superintendent mentioned, you've been provided with an outline detailing this further, and there are links included in that live document.
Yeah,
If
Debbie,
that's provided
can
to
she
as
maybe
well,
speak up a
to
little bit?
deliverables.
Is she able to?
Hey, Sabrina, can you speak up a little bit more?
Sure.
We're doing our
Absolutely.
best here, but we may need you to,
Absolutely,
project.
I can project. Thank you for flagging me. If we can be on slide 7, we began our process by reviewing all relevant materials to create an initial needs assessment. And in conducting that needs assessment, we were also able to conduct an analysis of the most recent student survey to provide some insight on the perspective on the work going forward, to make sure that we're grounded in our most important stakeholders, of course, our students. This chart is one example of an output from that analysis that details students' career interests. We can move to slide 8. We hosted a 2-day retreat, which you'll see some items from on this slide, to build the design thinking capacity of the high school team specifically. Here, we provided resources and samples to inspire the design of initial test pilots. And this was also attended by 2 high school students in order to get live feedback. And we also had the pleasure of welcoming Mrs. Mulligan to the group as well. You can see her here. She was working through a design task with the team itself in order to push some thinking into how we could apply some creativity to the high school. In follow-up to the retreat, we also introduced a structure for iterative testing, and a high-level project plan was developed that you're also going to see detailed by some of the Middletown leadership team going forward. And I'll hand it back to you, Superintendent.
Okay, very good. Okay, now we're going to turn it over to Ms. Cotter. She's going to take us through the next part of our presentation and really sort of drill down to our strategic vision. You're going to see the skills, the badges, and what's going on at the high school.
So by grounding the context of the Middletown High School design work in the Passport to Tomorrow, we are able to focus development of pilots and their iterations on outcomes that directly align with the Passport to Tomorrow. With high school redesign being one strategy for achieving the high-level goals of the Passport to Tomorrow, this core model has been used by myself and Mrs. Bowman as a grounding tool to connect all of the dots between what the team aspires to achieve and the overall commitment to the district. So we're talking about phase 1 and we're getting ready for phase 2. And so we are now at the next slide. And what we follow is a really specific process called Plan, Do, Study, Act. Plan, Do, Study, Act. And this repeats throughout. So let's go to the next slide. We utilize this method, the Plan, Do, Study, Act, and we create our data from this planning process. So Anna keeps great notes with all of our teachers involved on all of the sections of every single pilot we do, and we have many going on. So in preparation for developing the proposals for implementation, our high school teams move through at least 3 phases of the Plan, Do, Study, Act, pausing between each one of those phases and each cycle to reflect, to analyze data and adjust models before iterating on their model to further improve upon their idea. So now we're on slide 12, and we are going through the pilots. And what we are doing at the high school is we're pressure testing to lead to the proposals that we will eventually be able to implement. So right now at the high school, there are 4 initial pilots that are going on. There's one in English, one in math, one that we call the welcome, and one that we call experiential learning. These are really interesting, and they're very different types of pilots. So in English, a teacher is leading a 12th grade group through a study of the Night of the Living Dead. He has a hold of the script. He is working with the Sword Opera House. They're producing all sorts of PR materials, tickets, etc., and they're making use of community connections. In math, they're doing a special tutoring experience, and they just recently had a major breakthrough for a student who had fallen behind because of a lengthy excused absence. These are examples of different types of pilots that individual teachers are doing in their classroom. Then we move into building pilots, and we have the welcome pilot. This started with the idea that we wanted to make our physical building more welcoming to the students when they come in every day. And what we saw was, in our redesign of the building, we had not really taken into consideration enough where the buses let out in the back and where the kids come in every day. So we started with the idea of that type of a welcoming and looking at the lighting, looking at the surroundings, looking at whether there needed to be some sort of awning, all those types of things. And then it has morphed into an entire climate change that the Hope Squad has been taking charge of and making a welcoming atmosphere beyond the building. That's what this process of 4 steps does, is it allows you to actually grow the pilot, and the pilot actually kind of blossoms out into what your school really needs. So we moved from a simple lighting focus to a climate with all sorts of topics involved, such as Fist Bump Friday. Last Friday, we had 25 teachers who came in on their own time for an extra 15 minutes to greet our children and just fist bump them off the buses. That's a tremendous outlay. That's over 5 hours of extra unpaid time that the teachers did just as a result of this type of pilot, which is a beautiful thing that these pilots are doing as they blossom. We are also doing the one that I consider to be a really heavy lift, an experiential learning pilot. Every department is making use of field trips and speakers and outside events. And after we have studied so many years, universal design for learning, project-based learning, we have moved into the next step, which is active applications of learning. This is really exciting stuff. So just to give you, we've done lots of these so far, but just to give you a little taste of this, we started reflecting on the pilots that we've been doing. In biology this last week, you've probably seen some photographs. Our entire 400 kids in biology went to Ohio State's Molly Caron Agricultural Center for the Farm Science Review. This is an exciting time. You go up there and there's 1,000 acres that have to do with all of the agricultural pathway. Now our children are primarily fairly urban. They don't usually get a lot of chance to see a lot of what goes on in agriculture. And there are a variety of different career options in that field. So we wanted them to see that site and we wanted them to experience that. But there's 3 days a year that they actually do the Farm Science Review that focuses specifically on the careers. And so we wanted to make sure that we got them up there. We found certain challenges. We found challenges that were things like transporting our students up there in the time of day that we were able to have transportation. We found certain challenges with how many chaperones we would need. We did this and it worked out beautifully, but we learned from it. And again, that was another one of those pieces where it was blossoming in information that was coming out of the pilot, which I think is just a super thing. It keeps us all learning. All of our pilots have been all means all. Every student who participates in that class, no matter what other abilities they may have, all students go on these field trips, and that is also a beautiful thing. I can tell you that we have a couple of really exciting ones coming up. There is a combination course for our freshmen coming up for the Holocaust and the Freedom Center down in Cincinnati. We're really excited about that. And also we have a really special one for the calculus and physics students, and they're going to the iFly Center. And so there's some really big ones that we've never been able to do before, and we're really hoping that all of this progresses and it not just motivates our students for their courses, but it inspires them for the next steps in their careers. So this is pretty exciting stuff. For the current pilot progress, we're evaluating in both quantitative and qualitative measures. Obviously, we want to know that our students are getting a lot out of this. And our teachers are able to connect their courses and their discipline and their standards easily with what we're doing. We also want to make sure that we can problem solve and look ahead for operations and systems answers to being able to support our experiential learning. For momentum and trajectory, this is a huge undertaking. Just like Mrs. Hauser said, it's not going to happen overnight. There's lots of excitement and full involvement at the high school. We're thrilled with the fact that our central office staff is giving us vision. Our administrative team is 100% involved with direction. Our BLT leadership is really taking the strong path with our building. Our staff is focused on all the different options that they have and making great selections and tying them closely to the work that they have to do that is rigorous with the courses. Our students are participating and we're learning what they like, what they don't like, what they're interested in, what they want to see more of. And we even have our parents giving us permission to take the students on these trips in a great timely manner. We're grounding our process in Passport to Tomorrow, the strategic plan vision, with the direction of the career pathways, while continuing to intensely focus on the rigor of our core academics. This is very important. There is in no way, shape, or form is this a negative impact on our academics. We know what we need to do there, and we know that lots of focus needs to go in that direction. So I don't want anyone to think that that is not anything but enhancing that work. Our path forward is being determined by that Plan, Do, Study, Act process. We're expanding our work through the SLO process. You're going to see our students taking advantage of expos from Cleveland Cliffs, criminal justice, MedQuest, engineering, and a fire responder. We're brainstorming for a future where we're going to go now. It's going to be interesting. We are on slide 13. In preparation for developing proposals for implementation, our teams move through at least 3 of these phases. So during this time, we will be able to reflect, analyze, and adjust, and then iterate our model for improving our school. We're identifying course catalog updates, and we will be identifying bell schedule options. In year 2, this is number 14, our BLT, our staff, students, and know that this progress is all about work infused. We're making sure that everything that we do with this is infused within the important work of our academics. Reflections that Mrs. Hauser and I had from Edgewood when we went with to a meeting with principals and superintendents was that we are far ahead. One of the things that someone said was that we were forging the path and that they were looking to us for what those paths would be and how to move forward with education and careers. Our team trips to schools that will be coming up, we're looking forward to that this fall. And for the future, we're looking for more bi-weekly communication, and we're looking to next summer for another summer retreat where we move forward again. This work is complicated. It is busy. It's exciting. There's lots going on with it, but we're thrilled that this is meeting a need our children have, and I think it is opening a world to them. And I think that's about the best thing that a school can do for children, is to open a world for them.
Before we move on and talk about phase 2, how about some questions?
I do have.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
You mentioned the pilots, and I apologize if I missed this, but how did you come to these original pilots, the ones you mentioned here?
That's a great question. We had, with the SLO group, we had a retreat this summer. And we brought children to the table. Mrs. Mulligan was there. Everybody in central office, a team, our BLT members, we were all there. All departments were represented. And we started brainstorming through a process that they had of things that we felt like we needed to do. So we came up with quite a lengthy list. And then what happened was certain things, as we worked through the process, bubbled to the top. And then what we had to do is we also had to look at what could we handle doing at the same time. So like I couldn't do, say, 3 English things and nothing else. So we balanced them out. We took the 2 that we felt were really important in English and math, and then we felt like we could do something that was all building, and then something that really focused on instruction and curriculum. So that's how we came up with the choice of the 4 to begin with. But we will have a new phase starting after the Christmas holiday. So we will have some things that need to be repeated and again bloomed out further, and there will be some new pieces as well.
Then, when you established your pilots, did teachers say, oh, I think I can do something in that area? Did you have people volunteer?
Yes, we had teachers who volunteered, stepped right up to the plate, and then when we opened up the experiential learning to all the different choices and field trips, and we really pushed on them to, I'm going to say this very layperson-ish. You're not going to the zoo to see elephants. If you're going to the zoo, you better tell me that you're going to be talking about careers and what happens there and what's that, those things just actually are said with our faculty. And our faculty laughed, but they said, of course. And that's exactly what they're doing. So all of these activities that they're going to have experiences that the kids have. Sometimes when you go into these museums, you take students and they just expect students to listen to someone as they walk around and look at things. That's not what we're doing. We have all sorts of different passports that they have to find information and fill out. We have specific speakers we're asking for to come and talk to them at specific exhibits. And we also have had things that basically require the students to problem solve right then and there on the spot. So I'm thrilled with where we're headed with this. This application of learning is a really good piece for our kids.
So one of the things, just to extend on that, during the retreat over the summer with all people in 2 days, everyone in that room agreed on the same 3 pillars, and that's what you'll see in front of you. They agreed on a variety experiential learning. That's number 1. Number 2 is really your relationships. That's student well-being, and number 3 is core instruction. So that's where the pilots fall under one of those pillars.
All students included. I know our students who have accommodations, who may be on an IEP, where do they fit within these pilots? Where do they fit within this process?
That's a great question. Our students who take those courses go on these experiential learning pieces. So our students who take biology course, whether it's an essentials course or whether a general course or an advanced course, all students go. If we need translators to go, they go as well. If we need aides to go, they go as well.
If we need special transportation, we get special. Yeah.
Transportation, if we need that, it goes as well.
Yeah.
Sounds wonderful.
Other
It's really
questions?
exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I know you had indicated, you emphasized the point that it does not take away, it adds to core instruction. And again, I'm trying to think about a community watching this, listening to this, and understanding that achievement scores and achievement, and those words are kind of drilled into the community as a way to look at the success or failure or anything in between as a school. And so to understand this process and how it's going to move our district, move our high school forward, is there strong confidence in the faculty and the leadership that this is going to move it in that direction?
I think if I can speak for them, it's early for me to speak for the entire faculty, but if I can speak for them, I would have to say that I judge it based upon their commitment. And their commitment has been 100% on this. I think that everybody agrees that we have to find better ways everywhere, not just in Middletown City Schools, but everywhere, to find ways to motivate our students to engage in what they're doing. There are a lot of competitors toward our children's attention. Social media is out there, at the teenage years, girlfriends, boyfriends, the homecoming dance, the game last night. I mean, I just keep going forever. But if we find ways that tie what this is to things that they love and passions that they can find for themselves, and even just an understanding of their world, they tend to engage more in the classroom. And what we are hoping for is that takes us to that engagement piece, which then will enhance their concentration, their commitment to their learning, and allow that to really be a big part of their life and bring them to the place where they're inspired for a career and their future. Because as we all know, most of us take a much more serious look at what we're doing if we know why we're doing it. And I think that that's a big part of this.
Because I mean, it's important that you say that, because the staff are going to be the linchpin to this succeeding. If they believe in it, do they understand the value of it? Because I've worked in schools, and there's new things that come through a school, and people look at them, oh, this will be here, and then it'll be gone next week. And the staff are going to be the ones that are going to carry the load to make sure it succeeds. So it's important that that's there. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I'd just like to say one more thing, and that is, I've been around a long time, and I've talked about this for in many different circles, and Mrs. Hauser's heard me say this more than once, I think that the strategic plan that this board adopted with this is profoundly tied to our clientele and what our kids need. So I believe 100% in it. My staff has all heard me say this, and I think that this is something too that as a community we can get behind and understand that this is going to help our children if they understand what they're going to do. So it has my 100% vote, that's for sure. So, thank you all.
Any other questions? Okay, so now we have phase two, right? Phase two. That was phase one. We're ready to enter into phase two.
And so I'm going to be short and sweet. Can everybody hear me? Okay. So I'm just going to overview the proposal for phase two. Time frame, it is over here on the left. So starting October, and this contract that we are proposing goes through August of 2024. So phase two is a big chunk. So in phase two, this proposal consists of the coordination with ILO leading a 2-day strategic learning visit to support real-world comparisons to pilots and opportunities for inspiration, problem-solving, and discovering design solutions. So in short, a field trip for the high school BLT and admin to go and visit schools that are not around here, probably on the West Coast, that are doing what we are looking to do. And ILO would be leading that, and at the end of the visits of probably 3 schools, doing a half-day workshop to debrief over the learning that's occurred. So if you go to conferences or you go and you're doing a lot of learning, you need to think through everything that you've just witnessed and seen. So that will be occurring. Through this next pilot proposal is defining clear key performance indicators and targeted student outcomes for each pilot. So what Carmela spoke about, they're doing 4 right now and more to come, is really defining as they keep iterating through these processes, defining what it is as an indicator and what those student outcomes would look like on each pilot. So that's the process that ILO has put in place for them, that plan, the 4 steps, I'd say it wrong if I'm trying to guess, and the data that Anna is collecting and filtering through, that's the data that they're going to be able to stand here and say, we know these are going to work, this is what the data says, and this is what we propose. So we will have clear, defined, a plan laid out after this. Conduct bi-weekly pilot planning meetings through ILO, offering coaching and support to the district, the high school leadership, and the pilot teams. And support for creating and refining implementation plans for each pilot, inclusive of policy revision, course and bell schedule recommendations through coaching, and a summer design retreat. So as we did this summer, where we brought their BLT in and went through all the processes of starting to come up with some pilots, next summer it's going to be, here's all the work we've done. Now let's start getting our proposal together based off of the data. That is what phase 2 consists of.
Okay, so you're going to see this on the board agenda right after the consent agenda to vote on this for approval for us to move forward phase 2. So if you have any questions, since we have, the high school leaders here and Ms. Hensley here, this would be a good time to ask the questions.
The only question I think I might have is I really appreciate the Plan, Do, Study Act. It's a great way to get information and to see if it's working. Do you have something built in case one of the pilots is not working?
To say something is built in, I would say the process itself is going to weed out. If it's not working, we're going to
Process
put
will
another
take it.
one in place. So we started with 4. We are anticipating starting a new set, like Ms. Cotter alluded to, come January. So you're going to have like 2 cycles going simultaneously. So I would say if it's not working and not yielding what we need, that pilot's not going to make the cut. And there's going to be others. So there could be 8 pilots that form this redesign model. There could be 10. We don't have a number, if you will, but if it's not cutting it, we're not forcing it. We're not retrofitting it into our
But you're
plan.
ready and, yeah, so
Right.
ready and prepared to look at the results, see if they're working, and if they're not, shift quickly
Yes.
into
Right.
something that is, because they're
Right.
all.
Or
running
expand
concurrently.
if it's not robust enough, if it's not really, is there a way to continue with it and make it what it needs to be? And if not, we're going to move on.
Thank you.
That's your whole Plan, Do, Study Act.
I know, that's what,
Yep.
like, if you're really not
Yep.
paying attention to what's not working,
Yep.
then you can
Yeah.
get in that rabbit hole and just do what you do and try to make it fit. But
Right.
the benefits of that Plan, Do, Study Act is you can see right away what's working and what's not working.
Yes.
So, thank you.
With a redesign, you can paint walls, or you can restructure an entire building. Will our high school feel different than walking into any other high school? I'm trying to conceptualize it in my mind. Like, I can walk into any neighboring high school, and you can hear the bells, you can walk down the halls, you can feel the environment. I've been in enough schools to know they're all relatively similar. After this is done, will our school feel, look, the experience be different to where somebody like me walking in or any community member walking in will see the difference?
Carmela, do you want to speak or do you? I don't mind to go too. Go.
I would certainly hope so.
Yeah.
That's what we're working really
Yeah,
hard
that's-
to
yeah.
try to do. We know that basically school is not working for a lot of students.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we know that, and we're working really hard, but we're working in a really old model. And so we've got to figure out how to bring this forward into the future, and we know that. The piece I think that everybody is looking for is this going to fix everything? You know, I don't know it's going to fix everything, but I know this, like, we're doing our very best to find all the pieces in this restructuring model and the process that they've set up for us to be able to hit as many pieces as we possibly can when we are ready to give you a program option. And so I think that's the realistic, but also the very hopeful vision of it.
That's all we can ask.
I had a question. A couple things. At the end of this contract, so we've mentioned a couple, we just want to kind of point to some concrete examples for a moment, take us from conceptual to some actual documents that we may have as a board. So I've noted course catalog changes, bill skills. We didn't talk about staffing or grading or maybe even collaboration, not just workforce collaboration, but at the end of this process, are we as a board going to have, or is ILO going to facilitate a final document that we look at for review? So we have those components listed in there, some of these concrete items that we're talking about. Is that
Yes.
the intention at the end of this?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. There'll be
And
a
it-
whole proposal.
Okay, and then secondly, and I was just curious about this because it says here that this contract is exclusive of all travel costs for the team members. How many team members are we talking about here that's going to be going on these field trips outside the district? So we want to go and look at the other models, how they're functioning. Are we talking 20 people? Are we talking 50 staff members? What are we looking at in
No,
terms
it would
of
be the
cost?
leadership team that has been working per BLT. Like, again, we haven't narrowed it down to exactly how many, but it's going to be her BLT would be the first group that she would look at to bring aboard for this because they have been part of the high school redesign piece. And then
that's how
there will
many
be some
people now?
leadership team.
So the BLT, what are we looking at there in terms of numbers? How many people? Just curiosity.
Yep.
15 to start with. Okay. All right.
And that goes right along with you have to see it to be it, which is what we've said so many times. Sometimes when we dream, we don't, we're not dreaming large enough because we don't know what's possible. So that's that opportunity to get out, see it in action, and what could possibly be.
Sure. All right. Thank you.
And so Todd, I do want to also mention, you said, like, have we looked at staffing? I mean, no, we haven't looked at staffing per se for like, how's that going to change the high school yet? But we have talked about what potential help or support might we need in a restructuring piece. Like right now, she's talked a lot about, in our conversations, the intricacies of planning these experiences and getting an entire grade level to Columbus to be able to stay longer than 2 hours to really experience it. Do we need to consider in the future someone that's going to organize experiences, that's going to organize some things? So we're at the beginning stages of it, but all of those pieces, and I'm not saying we're considering FTEs or anything, but to support the program and the redesign. Yes.
Thank you.
Under the bell schedule options, can you tell me a little bit more about that, what that might look like, and does that include maybe no bell at all?
I can. One of the things that came out very strongly was we start school too soon, too early in the morning. It's very hard on the kids, and that's not contributing to them feeling motivated, excited to go to school, or any of those things. We know why it's like that. We're on a 3-tier bus system. We know all of the reasons why. But one of the things that also happens in that 3-tier bus system is that my students can't go anywhere until after 9:30 because the buses are going to the middle schools and the elementary schools. Well, by the time they have to get back in order to be ready for dismissal, basically, it ends up with about 3 hours that they're allowed to be anywhere. Well, that's not enough time to be able to get them anywhere and actually have them doing this experiential learning work. And so that's one of the challenges that we're addressing. The other one that we're addressing is what does our week look like? So we're looking at what does our hourly day look like, and also what does our week look like? Mm-hmm. Is there a better way to structure the entire week so that this is maybe less invasive, maybe more protecting of other time that we need, and at the same time getting kids where they need to be at different times? How do we do that? Different schools are doing all sorts of different things. You know, you read about schools that have taken Fridays and they have done something with the Fridays. You know, that's just one option that's out there. There's lots of them. We need to find the one that supports
what we're
the
doing.
actual restructure that Middletown sees is right for their kids. And so that's what we're looking at. So it's really bells and the entire week. Yep.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Any other questions? No? So it's true, you could see the passion, right? You can see the passion, you can hear the passion, the excitement. Still 25, 26 is going to be here before we know it. So I want to say thank you to everyone that came out tonight to share phase 1 and the work that we've accomplished in these few short months. And lots of great work ahead of us, right, in preparation. So thanks, guys, and thanks, Sabrina.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yep. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you. All right, moving along. Is there a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Second, Ms. Mulligan, I think, got it in there. Any questions or comments or things, Mr. Bertram, you want to highlight within tonight's consent agenda?
As far as the financial report goes, there's no certifications or changes in any of the budgets. And there weren't any donations for this month either, but we do have a few nice donations coming that you'll see next month.
All right, any questions? All right, then, Mr. Bertram, we're ready.
Mrs. Shiver?
Yes.
Mrs. Stewart?
Yes.
Mrs. Mulligan?
Yes.
Dr. Urso?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Under Human Resources, there's a resolution approving hiring of non-bachelor degree substitute teachers. I believe we had a first read last meeting. Is there a motion for approval?
So move.
And a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments
I
regarding
do.
the-
A couple questions, just before we vote. And in doing this, can you just explain a little bit more about the rationale that we're going into here? I mean, I understand that during COVID, there was a House bill that was presented. It changed these requirements. I also know, as a practical matter, we're probably facing a shortage of substitute teachers. We're trying to figure that out. But can you just give me a little more context here? Because I know that there's many school districts that are taking they're being a little creative in terms of how they attract or retain some of their substitute teachers. I just wanted to get a little context before we move to a vote.
Sure. Well, you pretty much hit the nail on the head, right? It stems from the lack of substitute teachers. What you see here is, so first of all, let me say our district substitute teachers have four-year degrees, right? They may not be education degrees, but they do have four-year degrees. Where you see this play out are we work with Butler County ESC, the consortium. This plays out with our subs that you call them for a day or two that come and work in the district. So that comes from the shortage of substitutes. But the district subs that we have that are full-time in our buildings, they're all four-year degreed substitute teachers. So this is through the consortium. But we have to have this board approved for them to work within our school district.
Are there any guidelines about who comes in, even if you don't have a bachelor's degree? Are there any, is there something that you're looking for, or something that would preclude somebody from doing this?
Well, they still have to be 21 years old. They have to pass a background check. They go through the training down at Butler County for substitute teachers. And then, of course, if they do come to Middletown City Schools to sub and they don't work out, we just say they're not welcome back. Yeah, but they still go through all of the fingerprinting, the training, that everyone else goes through.
Like my colleagues, I kind of have some reservations, and I know it's probably one of the most challenging jobs, is to walk into a school building and you might have lesson plans, you might not, and you have a whole group of kids, and in a high school you have multiple groups of new kids each bell period. There are no better options in regards to, because theoretically you could have a 21-year-old young person walk into a classroom that, he could be teaching people that he went to school or she went to school with a few years earlier. It just opens the door for some, I don't know. It just seems.
Those are valid concerns.
Yeah.
Valid concerns. There are options that we have.
In terms of what we might think about as a number of subs that we're looking at for these 1 or 2 day positions, are there any kind of projections on that? I know that we increased, I think, substitute teacher pay. I think we brought that up to 126, which still is lower than many other districts. But subs that we've worked with, have we thought about any incentives for those subs that may come back and serve the district? I guess what I'm saying is, rather than taking this broader approach, because I read this language, this gives you the discretion to basically, if we need a sub for 1 or 2 days, it leaves the discretion entirely up to you for that term. It could be 1, 2 days, it could be longer. You have the ability to do that under this language. So I'm just trying to figure out, have we exhausted all other remedies before we move to this broad language that empowers you to just hire folks where, in my own view, I understand the practical challenge that we're facing, but it decreases our standards that we currently have.
Well, substitute teachers, that's been an issue for years, right? That's been an issue, securing substitutes when our teachers are out. So I know that our principals and our staff members, our teachers, work very closely with their substitute teachers that come in from outside, from the consortium, right? So we're not talking our district subs. This is a totally different discussion, right? Our district subs that we've hired for each building. So they're not that pool of subs.
Long-term sub positions, is that?
So, we call them district subs. We have 2 to 4 in each one of our buildings where they report every day.
Right.
Okay, and they're four-year degreed subs. We're talking about when our teachers, when they do not have coverage from the district subs, which that does happen on occasion, and that's where they call and they try to secure a substitute from our consortium. Now, yes, do our teachers know who the top-notch substitutes are? They sure do, right? Do they try to get them in before they have to do a cold call to a sub that's never been to the building before? Do our principals know? They sure do, right? But those people, those numbers are dwindling. You've seen that, and it's not just in Middletown schools. That's all over the place. This is the state's way of helping us build the sub pool. And then, yes, there's a lot to be said about someone that goes out to get a 4-year degree. You know, just the persistence and the education, and but
And I think that's
they
one
are
of the
not
challenges that I
there.
really have is that we're saying to someone who may have gone through a program where they're out, they just started, maybe they're looking for a job, and you look at this current context right now, many folks are looking for a job, and we're telling that college graduate, hey, you don't have to have a 4-year degree. We're going to work with this person at this point. But I understand the practical question. I do, but I'm kind of struggling there with this.
Well, that also, so you brought up a valid point also. I mean, that would allow us to hire a student teacher, right, to come in and sub. And then also, don't forget, if we have a sub that reports to our building and we're not feeling comfortable with that sub, we can easily say, you can go home for the day. So it's not something where we've hired them and we're tied to them. We have the ability to say, and we also have the ability to say that they don't come back to our buildings. If we find that someone's 21 years old, and yes, that's only a couple years older than the seniors, and we say, yep, that's just not good, we do have the ability to say that they do not come back to our buildings.
Sure.
I guess I'm hoping that there will be eyes
Yes.
when these people come in, or like partner teachers who will kind of look in.
Which is the case, right, when we have our substitute teachers, right? There's always a partner.
If I could just add a little bit to the context, you mentioned pay. I will tell you, when I started, sub pay for teachers was $75 in most districts. 5 years ago, you're still seeing at $80 and $85 in school districts. Now it's up between $125 to $150, and these are the day-to-day subs that you call in just for temporary placement. And as much as districts have increased sub pay, which we've been one of those districts as well, we're not the lowest anymore, by the way. We're probably right in the middle at this point. It hasn't improved the number of applicants. I don't know if that pay would need to go to $200 a day or $250 a day to be able to get to that point. That's why we went with the permanent subs, because we pay them at starting teacher pay. That's what got the attraction. So it's seldom that we really do need to go out and get the additional subs. There are days that we definitely do. But the nice thing is, when teachers can request subs, they have a favorite list that they can go to first and foremost to try and get those subs. But anyhow, before a district, if there was a long-term position we wanted to sub for, we hire them for those long-term. So they'd have to pass whatever standards we have to bring them in under a long-term basis.
Right. So this isn't something you're going to see, many 21-year-olds in our classrooms. This is a just in case we don't have someone. So it's a back. That's a good way to put it. It's a backstop.
We're hoping the incentive pay that we negotiated is working. I'll look at our union people over there. Other questions? And we are curious, I know I'm curious of the non-fill rate, like how many days do we have a classroom does not have a sub within it? There are no questions. I believe we're ready to vote.
Mrs. Stewart?
Yes.
Mrs. Mulligan?
Yes.
Dr. Urso?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Hate to be disagreeable, but no.
And Mrs. Schreiber?
Yes.
Thank you.
Under curriculum instruction, we have a contract. It's with ILO Group. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
A second, Ms. Stewart, thank you.
Was Kathy the motion?
I believe it was Anita.
It's Anita.
Thank you.
Ms. Scheibert.
Having trouble with the fan over here.
Any questions, comments, insight regarding said contract?
No, I think this is a much-needed program. I think this is filling a need that we haven't filled before. No schools have. I mean, educating children includes making sure they have knowledge of who they are and what are their abilities when they get out of school. They know if they can't write a paper. They know if they can't do math, but they're not sure what they do know in the workforce. So I think this is wonderful.
Sure. Other comments or questions? Mr. Bertram?
Mrs. Mulligan?
Yes.
Dr. Urso?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Schreiber?
Yes.
Mrs. Stewart?
Yes.
District committees, any committees, Ms. Hauser?
Nope, not district committees.
No district committees? Butler Tech, anything of note from Butler Tech?
Butler Tech is doing well. They are moving right along with the aviation
Yes, they are.
project. I think it's scheduled. I taken some notes and didn't bring them with me, but scheduled to begin breaking ground and getting that off the ground. So I'm super excited about the aviation pathway that'll be extended to our students. That's it.
Thank you. Moving on to, I guess, Board of Education reports and activity. Anything, Mr. Moore, to report tonight?
I do. I was just glancing through Facebook. I seen a post by Middletown Schools about libraries coming back. There's two things. One, Ms. Hauser was highlighted, I believe, for her work in the district. There was a publication. I can't recall the exact publication. I know it was posted here within the last week or so, but I wanted to say that that was a really nice article.
Thank you.
And very much deserving of that article as well. But I wanted to encourage you. This was news to me. I don't know if the board was aware that some of those libraries were coming back. I was disappointed to see our libraries moved out of the buildings. But I'm encouraged that you're bringing them back. So I was just going to encourage you, Ms. Hauser, to maybe talk a little bit more about that or share that with the board and the community, because I do believe that that is a positive for our district. So
Okay.
that's all I have tonight.
Thank you.
Ms. Schreiber, anything to?
No, I have nothing to report, thank you.
All right. Ms. Stewart, anything tonight?
No, thank you.
All right. Ms. Mulligan?
I have to say something. I've been looking at the state report card, and I'm just puzzled by it. And, well, this doesn't have anything to do with my puzzlement, but this high school redesign process, if we do that, will that automatically give us high scores on the prepared for after high school? I mean, if we have this program, wouldn't this be exemplary of exactly what we're supposed to be doing?
That's what we're working towards.
Yeah.
Right, exactly like Ms. Cotter said, that's what we're striving for. Yeah. Well, for them to have a plan, right, for them to understand their options when they step outside of our four walls in what they're going to do, whether it's college, career, enlist,
Well,
but
then
yes,
automatically we would, as a district, have high marks in that component.
that's what we're going for.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you.
My turn. I'd like to congratulate the marching band for winning the Best Color Guard, Best General Effect, Best Visuals, I guess AA first place, and I don't know what the A's represent, but I guess they're good. A/AA Grand Champion at the Logan Elm High School Invitational. I was at the football game my days are blending together a week or so ago when they pulled out a win against Lakota, and was really impressed with their performance. The backdrop that they performed in front of was impressive. They sound really good, and was excited to see that other folks outside of my ears agree. And so congratulations. I know Dave Leaston at the high school, they work really hard. That whole team is, second to none in what they do. Good luck to our folks on Friday for homecoming. Just hope everyone's safe and smart this weekend. That's all I have.
Okay.
Friday, I participated in a greet and meet at Creekview Elementary School. And speaking of the football team, Coach Simpson brought down about 25 of his kids. I felt small. He does have a big team, by golly, and the kids were delightful. The students and the young kids, and the interaction, seeing them between the older and the young, high-fiving all those kids coming in. It was the highlight of my week, just getting a fist bump or smack hands, or them tucking their way through the line, but it was really enjoyable. I'm glad our principal at Creekview, Jamie, did that and invited me to that. I enjoyed it a lot, so thank you, Ms. Lyerly.
So everyone should have seen the MIDI Monthly show up in your email inbox today. That was released first thing this morning. So we sent that out to 8,000 people this morning. And truly, our plan is to send that out once a month at the end of each month. We would truly like to hear what people would like to see in the newsletter, right? With the average open rate of any newsletter of 30%, our goal is that everybody opens that newsletter. But unless people share with us what they want to see in the newsletter, we don't know. We have an avenue in that newsletter for people to share, but it's the first one, right? We're going to have one come out each month, and we're surely looking for some feedback to direct us what people would like to hear. We have lots of wonderful things going on in Middletown City Schools, and we'd like to share it in a manner for everyone to learn about them. Yeah.
All right. If there's no other business, is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
And a second, please.
Second.
And a vote, please.
All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Good evening.
Thanks, guys.